Okay.
Good morning, everyone. At this time, I'll call the regular board meeting for Crow Wing County to order for February 23rd, 2021. If you'll stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. So all commissioners are in attendance today. Commissioner Coring is coming in by teams. At this time, we have open forum. If there's anyone out there that would like to speak to any subject other than what's on our published agenda, this is your opportunity. Is there anyone out there?
I don't believe so.
Anyone that wants to speak on anything other than what's on our published agenda? Hearing none, we'll move on. Review and approval of the minutes from the regular county board meeting of February 9th, 2021.
So moved.
Commissioner Franzine makes a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Commissioner Brecken seconds that motion. Therese, if you would call the roll call, please.
Commissioner Brecken?
Aye.
Commissioner Hoag?
Aye.
Commissioner Franzine?
Aye.
Commissioner Coring?
Yes.
Commissioner Barrows?
Chair votes aye. Motion passes. Review and approve the agenda.
So move.
Could you please make an addition under other business, just a committee appointment for Steve Voss for transportation?
Steve Voss for transportation. Transportation.
And then I'll second that motion.
Appointment. Okay, thank you. Motion by Commissioner Hoag to approve, seconded by Commissioner Franzine. Therese, if you would call the roll call, please.
Commissioner Hoag?
Aye.
Commissioner Franzine?
Aye.
Commissioner Coring?
Aye.
Commissioner Brecken?
Aye.
Commissioner Barrows?
Chair votes aye. Motion passes. Consent agenda.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Coring. You make.
Mr. Chair, could I just have a little recap? Doesn't have to be a huge recap of 5.9, the abatement, just to kind of refresh my memory on what the abatement is and for the short-term rental.
Mr. Griffin, would you like to answer that?
Sure. Good morning, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. The short-term rental abatements today are to abate the difference in tax that would be owed on short-term rentals that were classified as commercial and have them a tax that would be in line with a residential non-homestead property. Statute has changed, and for the 2021 assessment, that will be the new classification on those properties moving forward. Need some more information than that, Mr. Coring?
No, I guess not. Is that because they created this is because they created a new classification at the legislature? Is that right?
Well, not because of that, but it's one of the reasons for the decision for you guys today is in 2019 and 2019, these properties were classified as seasonal. We got direction. We needed to classify them as commercial, which we did. Moving forward, they have now, the state legislature has made a statute change and added the language to classify these as res non-homestead. So what'll happen with these properties is, say if they had $1,000, it would go to maybe $1,800 and back down to about $1,200 based off of just classification changes. The spike in the tax is what seems a little kind of irregular for somebody to understand why are my taxes being bounced up and down so quickly.
Okay, I guess I understand it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Griffin. Any other questions on the consent agenda? I would look for a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent.
Commissioner Hoag makes a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Commissioner Brecken seconds that motion. Therese, if you would call the roll call, please.
Commissioner Franzine? Commissioner Coring?
Aye.
Commissioner Brecken?
Aye.
Commissioner Hoag?
Aye.
Commissioner Barrows?
Chair votes aye. Motion passes. At this time, I would look for a motion to enter into a public hearing
So moved.
regarding the ATV ordinance amendment. Commissioner Franzine makes the motion,
Second.
second by Commissioner Hoag. Therese, if you would call the roll call, please.
Commissioner Coring?
Aye.
Commissioner Brecken?
Aye.
Commissioner Hoag?
Aye.
Commissioner Franzine?
Aye.
Commissioner Barrows?
Chair votes aye. We are now in the public hearing portion of our meeting regarding the ATV ordinance amendment resolution. I'm not sure if, Ryan, Mr. Simonson, would you like to address that, or Mr. Griffin?
Sure. Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the board. This item is simply to update the ATV ordinance to re-include a restriction that was missed when we last updated it. And that restriction is to keep ATVs out of the ditch just from the segment of County Road 66 between Cross Lake and Manhattan Beach. That section of ditch is a unique stormwater system for the Whitefish chain, and it's important to keep ATVs out of there. So that's no other changes are being proposed. It's just to add that restriction into the ordinance, which was missed when we last updated it.
Thank you. Is there anyone out there in the public that would like to speak to this amendment? Anyone out there in the public who would like to speak to this amendment? Third call for anyone to address this amendment. Hearing none, I would look for a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Commissioner Franzine makes a motion,
Second.
second by Commissioner Hoag. Therese, if you would call the roll call, please.
Commissioner Brecken?
Aye.
Commissioner Hoag?
Aye.
Commissioner Franzine?
Aye.
Commissioner Coring?
Aye.
Commissioner Barrows?
Chair votes aye. We are now back in regular session, and before us is the ATV ordinance amendment resolution.
So moved.
Commissioner Franzine makes the motion to approve.
I'll second.
Commissioner Brecken seconds that motion. Therese, if you would call the roll call, please.
Commissioner Hoag?
Aye.
Commissioner Franzine?
Aye.
Commissioner Coring?
Aye.
Commissioner Brecken?
Aye.
Commissioner Barrows?
Chair votes aye. That motion passes. Number 7 on our list today is the City of Nisswa and the request to transfer ownership of tax forfeited parcel at less than estimated market value. We can, Ms. Max, would you like to address that first?
I can start, Mr. Chair, just with a short introduction, if I could. So the City of Nisswa is requesting that the county support a free conveyance of tax forfeited land to the city to be used as a public park. And the city has made multiple requests for this conveyance over the past year or so, and they've presented at multiple county board meetings, such as the Natural Resource Advisory Committee and Committee of the Whole. And City Administrator Jenny Max is here today, and she's prepared a brief presentation on the proposal, and so I will turn it over to her.
Perfect. Thank you, Ryan. Good morning, Mr. Chair and Board of Commissioners. Give me 1 second while I pull up my PowerPoint, and I'm at the end. Let's get to the beginning here. Can the board see the PowerPoint?
Yeah, Jenny, can you go to the bottom and right next to where it says 70%? Can you click on that and make it a full presentation? Yeah, no, the one that was right next to the 70. Yep, that one. Can you click
That's the
on
one
it?
I clicked on.
So you have, did you double click?
Can you see my slides move at all?
I can see them, but they're not gonna move unless you click on
Not
each
gonna move?
slide. So you're
Well,
unable
if it
to click on
works-
the icon next to the 70.
Let's see if I can try, because I'm clicking on the slideshow right next to the 70, on the bottom right,
Right.
correct?
But what's highlighted
Yeah.
is the first icon. You want to do the last icon.
Let's just try to, I'm just, how about
Okay,
that
there
one?
you go. Now you should be able, can you just advance it once so I can, yep, perfect.
Perfect, okay, great. Well, good morning again, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to present to you today at your regular board meeting. I know that everyone's well familiar with this project, so I'll keep my comments brief and high level for the board. Feel free to ask me questions along the way. But this is the City of Nisswa's request to the county, as Ryan mentioned, to convey tax forfeit parcels along Camp Lincoln Road and Hole in the Day Lake to create a natural city park. As I mentioned last week at the committee meeting, what I found unique about this project was this really capitalizes on an opportunity to achieve both the city's and the county's goals and mission to maintain recreational opportunities and to provide additional access for our residents and our visitors to the community, preserving the natural wildlife and the waters and the preservation of our resources is very important to both of our respective entities. And this was a great opportunity that we started discussing back some time ago. As you know, we started discussing this in 2019 when the initial request to sell those tax forfeit parcels came to the city. And we've been working over the last year and a half to see what opportunities there might be. We presented to the Natural Resources Advisory Committee last July with our initial idea. And the committee was very supportive of this proposed project. And so we kept that conversation moving forward. The county did work to create a policy to help provide some guidance for staff, which is great. And today we are here to bring our formal request to the county board to convey those tax forfeit parcels along Camp Lincoln Road. Here's a high-level view of the City of Nisswa boundaries on the left. And on the right-hand side, you will see these tax forfeit parcels identified in red. They are currently zoned public recreation and have been since 2001. And the black line represents the proposed path that we would build the nature trails. The top section of the screen, you will see references where the parking lot would be and the restroom. And then we would incorporate some historical kiosks or kiosks representing historical significance, educational opportunities, and things of that nature. Here are some pictures of the existing property. As far as the trail goes, we would design 1.3 miles of nature trails. I'm hopeful that we can add a couple of loops throughout the property as well to provide different options for users of the trails. They would be pedestrian, so walking, running, hiking, snowshoeing, cross-country skiing, year-round use is our goal, and we hope that the property will be utilized that way throughout the year. No motorized use would be allowed. We would incorporate benches throughout the properties and add additional kiosks. We're hoping to incorporate some historical significance and other educational opportunities, as I've mentioned, partnering with our area Native American communities to highlight the significance of Chief Hole in the Day, other history and events that might be unique to Nisswa, and then education on what the preservation of water, our wildlife, and our other natural resources would look like. I provided a photo of one of the boards that's used at the Fire Tower Park up in Pequot as a great example of something we'd like to use to incorporate some consistency and how that information is communicated throughout the different amenities in the county. So as I mentioned in July, the city presented to the Natural Resources Committee our idea of the park, and they recommended the county board approve the conveyance at no cost, with the stipulation that a restroom facility is added within 4 years. And the city agreed to do that. We would purchase the same facility that the county uses in other areas, which was an approximate cost of $25,000, plus any annual maintenance as needed. I'll skip through a couple things and just go to our proposed timeline. So we're here early 2021, presenting to the county our request to convey the land. If that would move forward, then we would develop a design concept in partnership with the county, with our area Native American communities, and just the greater Nisswa Crow Wing County community as well. We would also seek funding opportunities to implement our design concept. In 2022, we'd finalize the concept for the design, and we'd begin trail clearing using volunteer efforts. We've received a lot of positive support here at the city for this project, and we think we could engage our local community to help us move forward with that initial trail clearing. In 2023, we would complete the trail clearing, we'd complete the parking lot, and we would add and install our signage. And lastly, in 2024, we would add the bathroom at the parking lot and continue our maintenance on an ongoing basis as part of our park's operational budget. So now we're at the point where the city would request the county board convey the properties to the city for the authorized public use to create a city park. And we look forward to continuing this project moving forward. And I will defer back to the chair and be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Max, and thank you, Mr. Simonson. I have 5 points that I want to bring up, and then the other commissioners can weigh in. I went back and with the assistance of Mr. Simonson, looked at the historical situation with these 8 lots that are being proposed here. And 5 of those were tax forfeited in 1937. That's 84 years ago. So that's pretty significant. 1 lot was went tax forfeited in 1992. Another one went tax forfeited in 2007. And then the 1 lot that we aren't sure of, I can't speak to that one, but 7 out of the 8 lots are at least 13 years or older in the tax forfeited arena, which seems like an awful lot of time for people to purchase those pieces of property if they chose to. My second observation was the environment. When I look at Hole-in-the-Day Lake, the spawning that takes place there, the wild rice that takes place, the birds that live in that area, the other wildlife that are in that area, I think all speak to what Crow Wing County wants to represent. And having a situation where the zoning doesn't allow for the development and we're sitting on tax forfeited land and can't do anything with it, we can't sell it, I think that speaks to an idea that perhaps we have to do something here. So the third thing that I looked at was the economy, and in my estimation, parks equal tourism, recreation equals tourism, and all those opportunities drive our economic situation in Crow Wing County. So I think that's significant for us to be looking at. The fourth one is that I looked at was other conveyances that have been done previously in the county, and I'll use Brainerd and Baxter as 2 of the outstanding areas where most of the parks in these 2 communities would not exist if it weren't for the conveyance of tax forfeited properties. Again, very significant. There's other places around the county in terms of water towers and other infrastructure that have also taken advantage of tax forfeited land at the behest of the county. So I think that also speaks to this opportunity. And then the 5th and final one is in the proposal, there is the parking lot, and I bike ride that particular road quite a bit. It's a narrow road. There's no real shoulders there, and if people were to park alongside the road and then go and use the existing trail, it further narrows that road, and the safety factor is enhanced to a point where everybody's put in danger, and plus the road has quite a bit of topography on it, so you don't always see cars coming and they don't always see you. So it's imperative that that parking lot gets instituted as quickly as possible, in my estimation. But I think that would enhance the safety on that road where we can get cars off the roadway, off those drive lanes. With that, I will ask for questions that other commissioners might have or points they would like to make.
No. Mr. Chair, if I can then, I believe that the highest and best use of this property, based on the existing zoning of that property, would be to convey that property to the city of Nisswa. So I'd like to make the motion to convey the property of tax forfeit land on Camp Lincoln Road to the city of Nisswa.
Commissioner Brecken makes a motion to convey the property to Nisswa at no charge. Is that?
No charge.
Is that the motion? Okay.
I'm going to second that.
Commissioner Hoag seconds that motion. Therese, if you would call it.
Discussion.
I just had a, okay, go ahead. If you're.
You can go ahead, you were
Well, I
already
just,
talking.
again, I, as you know, have supported these type of transfers in the past and will continue to, but something that Gary said at the last meeting, as far as having, similar to our trails that we do, there's a process that we go through, and in this case, I think Gary suggested maybe we do have a similar type of process for these type of applications, where we have a checklist of items that have to be hit, in this case, a plan going forward. I would support that and encourage maybe that's something that we follow up on, because I don't think that this is going to be the last one. I hope that it isn't, because I think, again, as Steve pointed out, these are a great tourism opportunity for our county, and I think that's important. As far as this being historical, I think it will be a great project. Probably shouldn't even say it, but I would even encourage maybe some opportunity for Crow Wing County to get involved with maybe some of the cost of getting this project moved along to a usable. I know that in the case of this one, it's going to take multiple years to do, probably because of the financing issue, but maybe there's something from, as we've done in other areas, even the vaulted toilets or something like that, that we could maybe help out with. So I'll leave it at that.
Commissioner Franzine.
Well, I'm not going to support this. I read in the paper yesterday that Crow Wing County estimated market value for this property is $168,000, but Nisswa's estimated market value is only $57,900. So they've already given themselves $110,000 credit. And we only passed our policy on December 15th. That's not even 3 months ago. It was a 5-0 vote. What's changed in 3 months that we can't even follow a policy for that amount of time? I'm going to vote no, because I think we should follow our policy. If our policies aren't good and our ordinances aren't good, then we need to change them. But this was just changed to something all 5 of us thought was good.
And to your point, I understand what you're saying. If a city came to us and needed to put up a new water tower,
That's a different thing. That's a need, not a want.
statute does allow for public use, though, and public recreation from the state statute. So I understand that our ordinance we passed made the statement that it's EMV all the time, but there are exceptions to that.
So the first thing, it takes courage to follow. It's very easy to be nice and say yes to everything. I'm going to pick to be courageous and do what our policy says.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair, I think sometimes I have found in my history that some days I make a decision and the next day I find out with additional information that maybe that decision was incorrect. And I think that taking and having some opportunities to take each case on an individual basis makes more sense to me.
Commissioner Coring, anything to add?
No, I'm just going to stick with the policy that we all agreed to in December. So I'll be voting no on this. Thank you.
So we have a motion and a second. Any other remarks? Therese, if you would call the roll call, please.
Commissioner Franzine?
No.
Commissioner Coring?
No.
Commissioner Brecken?
Aye.
Commissioner Hoag?
Aye.
Commissioner Barrows?
Chair votes aye. Motion passes. Thank you, everyone. We'll move on to number 8. This is the 8.1 in preliminary plat for Rutgers Bay Lake Cottages. Mr. Free.
All right. Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the board. First item for consideration this morning, I have a number of different items, is a request for board action to approve, table, or deny a preliminary plat of a shared capital resort of Rutgers Bay Lake Cottages, consisting of 15 total lots and 1 outlot, 12 dwelling units, 2 common lots, and 1 outlot A. It's involving approximately 13.53 acres. It's located at 25039 Tamefish Lake Road in Deerwood. Based on the findings of fact located in the Land Services Department dated 2/16/2021. This particular item was unanimously recommended by our Planning Commission on February 8th, 2021. And with that, it's a short introduction, I know. I'll take any questions or any further explanation that anyone needs.
Thank you, Mr. Free. Any questions for Mr. Free? Hearing none, I would look for a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Commissioner Hoag makes a motion to approve the preliminary plat.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Coring. Therese, would you call the roll call, please?
Commissioner Coring?
Aye.
Commissioner Brecken?
Aye.
Commissioner Hoag?
Aye.
Commissioner Franzine?
Aye.
Commissioner Barrows?
Chair votes aye. That motion passes. We're on to 8.2, the final plat for Rutgers Bay Lake Cottages.
All right,
Mr.
Mr.
Freed.
Chair and members of the board, the second item is a final plat for that same property, same location. One moment. So the recommended board action again is to approve, table, or deny the final plat for a shared capital resort of Rutgers Bay Lake Cottages, consisting of 15 total lots, 1 outlet, 12 dwelling units, 2 common lots, and 1 outlot A, serving the same property involving 13.53 acres located at 25039 Tamefish Lake Road in Deerwood, based on the findings in the Land Services Department dated 2/16/2021.
Any questions for Mr. Free regarding the final plat?
Motion to approve.
Commissioner Coring makes a motion to approve.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Franzine. Therese, if you would call the roll call, please.
Commissioner Brecken?
Aye.
Commissioner Hoag?
Aye.
Commissioner Franzine?
Aye.
Commissioner Coring?
Aye.
Commissioner Brecken?
Chair votes aye.
Barrows? Sorry.
That motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Free. We're on to Lakeview Condo Storage Amendment to the final plat. Again, Mr. Free.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the board. Our next item is an amendment to a final plat of Lakeview Condo Storage. So in September of 2020, the final plat was approved by the county board. And what's being requested here is, and this is in Government Lot 7, Section 10, an unorganized first assessment involving approximately 17.5 acres. The amendment here is, on this plat, there was 2 sections. There was a residential side consisting of 10 lots, and there was a non-residential side consisting of 34 commercial storage units. The official final plat approval language stated that they were to be storage units. What the developer would like to do is have one of those lots Lot 19 changed the use to be used as an association bathroom, meeting room, wash bay building instead of a storage unit, with all those lots located within the commercial 2 zoning portion of the property. And because of that change, upon consultation of legal counsel, we need to amend the final plat to make sure it's clear that that one is not going to be used as a commercial storage unit. So it's a minor detail, but one we had to do.
Questions for Mr. Free?
Mr. Free, do you see, Mr.
Go ahead,
Mr. Chair,
Brecken.
do you see any reason that would not be appropriate?
Mr. Chair, that would be a policy decision for the county board to make a decision. It would, if you're asking if it's allowed in the zoning district, I would say it is.
And septic should not be a problem, do you think, in regards to space for that?
They've amended their declarations as part of this to make sure they include the use of this and appropriate septic treatments for that. So I believe that this request has met the requirements that we have.
Okay. Mr. Chair, just, I have gone to Detroit Lakes and looked at this development that they have there, where they have what I'll call a clubhouse. I know that people that have already been purchasing some of these storage units are requesting that for that opportunity, because they also have been over there. So I can see, I would support this.
I'll make the motion.
Commissioner Franzine makes the motion to approve.
I'll second.
Second by Commissioner Brecken. Therese, if you'd call the roll call, please.
Commissioner Hoag?
Aye.
Commissioner Franzine?
Aye.
Commissioner Coring?
Aye.
Commissioner Brecken?
Aye.
Commissioner Barrows?
Chair votes aye. Motion passes. On to 8.4, which is the 2021 AIS Prevention Plan. Mr. Free.
All right. Last item for Land Services. Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the board. Very excited, as we are annually every year, to present to our County Board of Commissioners our 2021 AIS Prevention Plan. So each year, the state of Minnesota has provided Crow Wing County with about $450,000 annually in local aid. They've done this since midway through 2014 to develop a plan to stop the spread of aquatic invasive species. We are required to update this plan every year, and this year we've received $440,901. So we've developed this plan late in 2020. We had a 30-day public comment period from December 31st through February 1st. We received 26 comments. We've responded to each one of those. We've posted them on our website for all to see. They're, of course, in your board packet. We've also recently emailed all the Lake Association and Lake Improvement Districts to make sure they had a chance to see those staff comments and responses. We also held an online virtual presentation of the plan on January 22nd. We took some questions and comments as part of that as well. I'll leave my introduction somewhat short to allow an opportunity to ask any questions you want. But at this point, we're looking for a motion to approve this plan and get it going.
Any questions for Mr. Free? I would just say, Mr. Free, that I appreciate all the work that you've done on the 2020 plan and now the 2021 plan. I think there's been a lot of work that's gone in there, a lot of good comments from lake associations and private citizens out there. So I just want you to know that we certainly appreciate that very much.
And Mr. Chair, if I could, I would remiss not to say we appreciate all the support from our partners, our Lake Association, Lake Improvement District, and all those passionate folks that really want to make sure Minnesota stays, Crow Wing County stays Minnesota's favorite place. And we have a lot of passionate partners, the DNR, Mississippi Headwaters Board, and we're really excited about our partnership with them. And they've provided financial support, in-kind support, and I don't want to forget to mention how thankful we are to have them. Mr. Chair, thank you.
Thank you very much for recognizing them. I would look for a motion to approve the 2021 AIS Prevention Plan.
So moved.
Commissioner Hoag makes the motion to approve.
I'll second.
Commissioner Brecken seconds that motion. Therese, if you'd call the roll call, please.
Commissioner Franzine?
No.
Commissioner
And
Coring?
I wanted time to discuss, but
Commissioner, stop.
Stop for 1 second.
yeah, we always have to ask for discussion.
Sorry.
My reason for voting no is not because I don't support the plan. It's because I have a lake in my district that I have had numerous calls about. You have had numerous calls about. It's referenced in the answers to numbers 4 and 5. And I do realize that there aren't a lot of people who use this landing, but Gladstone is one of the few lakes in the area that doesn't have any AIS, and I would like to keep it that way. And so that's my reason for voting no.
Noted. Therese, if you would continue with the roll call?
Commissioner Coring?
Aye.
Commissioner Brecken?
Aye.
Commissioner Hoag?
Aye.
Commissioner Barros?
Chair votes aye. That motion passes.
All right,
Apologize to Commissioner Franzine for
Right.
not giving her the opportunity to speak.
thank you.
Thank you. We're on to number 9 on our agenda. First one is to sponsor the City of Breezy Point application for the LRIP program. County Engineer, Mr. Bray. Are you on mute?
You're muted, Tim.
Welcome.
Unbelievable. Boy, I could have gone on a long time. Good morning, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. I have 3 items for you today, and the first 2 are related. And just as an introduction to this first 2, we have 2 communities or groups of communities here that are looking for support and sponsorship for the local road improvement program. This is a program that we've used before. If you recall, Englewood Drive, Delwood Drive, County Road 20, and others around here. It's been a significant source of revenue to improve some roadways that we've been a partnership of. Recently, the legislature had passed another $75 million of bonding to expand the use of this, and the eligibility kind of extended or highlighted its use by small cities and townships. And we have one city and a group of city and township that are going to apply for this grant that is due March 3rd. And so the first one is a request by the city of Breezy Point is actually taking the lead, but it also involves the city of Pequot Lakes, Ideal Township, and Jenkins Township. And they're looking to apply for the full $1.25 million to start working on a project they have started working on this last year. And this is to improve the roads of Bushman, Ackerson, Nelson, and Wild Acres. And these are the ones that are north of the cities of Breezy Point and Pequot Lakes. They've recently selected a consultant and is doing some study work, and they feel that they have enough information to pull together to apply for this road system that they're looking to improve. This one does not involve county roads, so it would be purely a sponsorship, and we would essentially be the banker. So if they were able to get money, we would not have cost participation on this one. It does meet the eligibility for this grant, and it would be an improvement to the transportation system, particularly in that area of Crow Wing County. And so I would recommend that that we support their efforts to get this grant money that's been important to us in other projects around the county.
Any questions for Mr. Bray regarding the Breezy Point proposal? I would look for a motion to approve.
I would so approve.
Commissioner Brecken makes the motion to approve.
Second.
Commissioner Hoag seconds that motion. Therese, if you would call the roll call, please.
Commissioner Coring?
Aye.
Commissioner Brecken?
Aye.
Commissioner Hoag?
Aye.
Commissioner Francine?
Aye.
Commissioner Barros?
Chair votes aye. That motion passes. 9.2 is to support the Nisswa application for the 2021 LRIP program funding. Mr. Bray.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The second one is very similar. It's the city of Nisswa is also seeking consideration for a local road improvement grant. This is the specific project they're looking for is an intersection improvement at County Road 77 and Nokomis Avenue. You are familiar with it as the entrance to Grandview Resort on the north side of Gull Lake. And we have been in discussions with Nisswa and Grandview and residents down there for the better part of a decade trying to find a solution for this intersection congestion that's been developing over the years there. And Nisswa has come forward and wants to apply for this grant for the pretty close to the full $1.25 million grant amount to potentially build a roundabout there. And it just hasn't risen to the priority level to be on our normal 5-year planning. So we believe it's a great project. It just hasn't risen to priority over some of the other intersection improvements we have. And this funding source would certainly help it kind of get to near the top of the list. On this one, we would have county participation in it because it is, of course, CSAH 77, and we would share any of the costs with them according to our cost participation policy that we updated last year. And so just like the other one, because it is a good project and it does support and improve our transportation system, I would recommend approval of this moving forward.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Coring, or Commissioner Coring, I'm sorry.
Tim, that's a county road, correct?
That's correct.
Why would the city of Nisswa be applying then for that grant? Wouldn't we, as at the county level, be applying for that grant? And if so, or with them applying for it, are they the ones that would do the design? It seems kind of odd that they'd be applying for it, and if they get the grant, then would they come up with a design on a county road? Seems kind of odd to me.
Commissioner Coring, that's a good question. It actually is the intersection of Nokomis Avenue too, which is a city street. So it is 2 legs are county. One is actually private. I believe it's Grandview entrance to the Pines. And because it is a city street, it makes sense for them to be the applicant as well. And we believe that because the city is the applicant here, that it will actually help it be successful. These grant dollars are kind of parsed between counties, cities, and townships. And so if the city is the lead agency and we are a sponsor and then eventually a project partner, we feel that wouldn't necessarily compete against county projects.
Can I ask another question? So if the city of Nisswa is successful, and I like this idea, but it just strikes me as a little odd. Okay, so let's say the city comes forward with the project, they come up with the engineering, and we at the county on our county road you're not pleased with that. The project can't go forward without us approving it, correct?
That's correct. We will certainly be active with them, and we've developed other projects where on our county road system where the city has taken the lead and they've hired the consultant to do the work, and we've paid our share of the consultant fees, and that is also laid out and have put a cap on some of that in our cost participation policy. not sure exactly how the design will go yet, and who, whether it would be an in-house design or it would be a consultant that NISWA hires. I think the important part is getting some money, and then we can figure out who designs it. This LRIP grant only pays for construction. Still be to the city and the county to figure out how to share the costs of engineering. You know,
Okay.
Mr. Bray, I have a question for you, kind of following up on what Commissioner Coring is saying. If this didn't rise to our priority to be in our 5-year plan, supporting this, and if they're successful, does this change our 5-year plan and the promises that were made on the projects that are currently identified in that plan?
I would say no, because this grant the eligibility is 100% construction costs. And so we would share a much, much smaller number with the city on engineering. So our priorities are set by the need, but also the amount of money we have in the system to address those needs. And if 100% of the construction cost is covered, in this particular case, we're trying to prioritize a smaller amount of money. And we maintain our finances here at the Highway Department to carry a fund balance to be able to do these types of projects once they come to us kind of on short notice. And so it would not change our priorities, and we would have the funds available, and we do manage for that specifically here.
So, Mr. Bray, if they were successful, what's the earliest date that this construction would happen?
I believe I don't know about the earliest, but I can tell you that with state money like this, there is a deadline. They'd like it spent by 2023, I believe, the end of 2023. So within the next few years.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, if I can.
Commissioner Brecken.
This roundabout, definitely, there's a safety issue up on County Road 77. I think also the lead that NISWA would take is there's a housing development planned on Lower Lake Road, which is going to add traffic to this particular, to 77, so I think that becomes a factor with that. But I do want to recognize Mr. Bray, too, in regards to the cooperation, both in this one and the Bushman, Ackerson and Nelson Road, is that the way he has been working with the other entities. And there's been a lot of positive feedback, and they very much appreciate his effort and the county's effort working with them to push these projects forward. So, Mr. Bray, thank you.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
So I need a motion to support the NISWA application for the 2021 Local Road Improvement Program.
I would so move.
Commissioner Franzine makes the motion. Commissioner Brecken, you're willing to second? Therese, if you would call the roll call, please.
Commissioner Brecken?
Aye.
Commissioner Hoag?
Aye.
Commissioner Franzine?
Aye.
Commissioner Coring?
Aye.
Commissioner Barrows?
Chair votes aye. That motion passes.
Mr. Chair, can we just take 1 second to have Tim Bray shut his blurred background off? We're wondering if that's why he's so choppy.
Mr. Bray, did you hear the request?
Yes.
Sorry to put you on the spot.
I hope my office is clean.
Otherwise, we might just have to have you shut the video off.
If that's okay.
It's not clean.
There we go. How's that?
It might be your internet connection then. We were just trying to pinpoint why it was so jumpy.
I'll shut off my camera. I don't.
It probably
If
would
that's
be
okay.
better because it's really lagging.
All right,
Okay.
let's move to 9.3, which is the Minnesota DNR Culvert Rehabilitation Lining and Ditch 13 Agreement. Mr. Bray.
Mr. Chair, thank you again. We have come across, as you all know, County Ditch 13 is managed by the county and the county highway department. We're collecting a annual maintenance assessment on I think it's about 800 parcels for it. And Ditch 13 runs under the Paul Bunyan Trail by, it's north of Merrifield. I think there is a graphic in your packet where it's at. And we continually do assessments of Ditch 13 in that job of ours to maintain and monitor the system. We've noticed over the years that there are 2 culverts that are under the Paul Bunyan Trail that are failing and in need of attention. These culverts are about 20 to 25 feet below the surface of the Paul Bunyan Trail, so they're very hard to get at and they'd be very intrusive to replace with open cutting with equipment. And so doing our work, we've contacted the DNR and asked them to partner with us to replace these culverts and continue our maintenance of Ditch 13. They have agreed to do so and agreed to fund the whole project and also pay our department engineering costs to deliver that project. This delivers great value to the folks that live along Ditch 13 and are paying the assessment because the DNR will pick up the full cost. Under normal circumstances, we would spread this cost to those that are being assessed and use those maintenance dollars to pay for it. So this is a good partnership with the DNR to line these culverts. So instead of digging them up, we're going to have a cured in place culvert lining, which will repair the culverts, not change the elevations, and then not be invasive to the trail by digging it up. And so we've put together an agreement. We have a quote actually from a contractor. The DNR has looked at the quote and has approved the quantity, and now we're following it up with an official agreement between the state and the county on how to get that done and then change the funds, reimburse us, and then pay us for our engineering costs that are leading up to it. Are there any questions?
Mr. Bray, when we line one of these culverts, what is the life expectancy of that culvert then?
I don't know for sure.
Better
A
than
normal
what
culvert
exists
is
at the
50
time?
It could be 50 years,
Okay, that's pretty significant.
decades.
Any
It's a
other
fairly
questions?
new technology.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
It's a fairly new technology. We spent, as the county highway department, we lined many of our own culverts here a few years ago, and it is something that is a cost savings, not only during construction, the upfront costs, but also to the public in exchange for digging up the road. You can think of detours and those things that we would have to put in place. So it is good technology. And this, I believe this is a great project. And
Thank you. Seeing no other questions, I would look for a motion to approve the Ditch 13 agreement with the Minnesota DNR, which is attached to our agenda.
So moved.
Commissioner Franzine makes the motion to approve.
I'll second.
Second by Commissioner Hoag. Therese, if you would call the roll call, please.
Commissioner Hoag?
Aye.
Commissioner Franzine?
Aye.
Commissioner Coring?
Aye.
Commissioner Brecken?
Aye.
Commissioner Barros?
Chair votes aye. That motion passes also. Thank you, Mr. Bray. Crow Wing County
Thank you.
Sheriff Goddard. Welcome.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. The nice part about coming in person is I don't have to worry about how messy my office looks, so. So going back in time here, the question came up and we had a little bit of discussion reference to our medical examiner contract. And we were able to get the statistics back for 2020, so I want to kind of share those numbers with you today. This isn't the funnest topic, and, you know, when we look at this, it's tough for me just to, you know, throw out numbers, because behind every one of these numbers is a name, and a number of these people here, just throwing a number behind it, you know, were my friends that live within Crow Wing County, and I'm certain that, you know, you are all going to fall into that same bill. But what I want to do is just walk through really what we saw for types of calls that the medical examiner helped assisted with, and then I've also got some total numbers throughout the year. So this report will encompass all the way from January 1st, 2020, all the way through December 31st of 2020. And this is fairly new, so it takes a while for them to, the medical examiner's office to get all these stats put together, because they have contracts throughout the state. So we just received this about a week ago, so it is fairly fresh. It's not something that I've been sitting on. But the head doctor, Kelly Mills, lists that there was a total of 188 deaths that were reported. Now, these are ones that actually go to the medical examiner's office from us or from other entities, law enforcement entities across Crow Wing County. And of those 188, 58 were complete autopsies with toxicology. 5 were just an external examination with toxicology. 21 were death certificates signed without an examination. And total cases accepted were 84. Now, a breakdown of the cases of what these included, and I'll come back to, I'll just list them. I'll come back to one that consistently has bothered me. Natural were 142, accidental were 33, suicide were 12. We had 0 under homicide, 1 under undetermined, and 0 under pending. So the suicides, to go back to that, the number was 12. So we're still basically averaging 1 per month of a resident of Crow Wing County, having such tragedy in their life that it's life-ending for them, which really hits home for me. And we strive and we really push, but this year specifically, we've seen. Well, everyone's seen the headlines. You know, this has been a tough year for our students, for people that have lost their jobs, for people that aren't used to working how they had to work, and then completely coping without having someone, to talk to every day, you know, where they're being sheltered in. So it's been a tough year. While I found the number is still drastically higher than I would ever like to think, I was kind of surprised that it wasn't higher with the year that we've had, and everything that people have to combat. But just to reach out to all of you, if you know someone that is sheltered, that is maybe having a bad day, all it takes is a phone call or stopping and knocking on the door and say, how you doing, and just listening. I mean, it's that simple sometimes to kind of kick in the discussion of, yeah, I'm really suffering, I'm really having problems, or I'm doing fine. We all got to reach out to each other. The report continues that as of February 8th of this year, they had a total of 536 cremations approved and 297 terminal registrations from Crow Wing County. And this is the statement that I saw a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel for. She said, Crow Wing County saw, despite the pandemic, a slight decrease in the overall types of death, including natural deaths. So when we started this year, and Tim can contest to this, our first projections were looking at possibly thousands of deaths in Crow Wing County due to COVID. And with our partnering with the health department here in Crow Wing County, everything that all of us have done, not only in our local government, city government, but in our businesses, our churches, everyone that has stepped up, and to keep that number at least on a plateau, and as this report mentions, even a little bit of a dip, I think is a good sign of what we've been able to accomplish. So that's the end of the report. I'd certainly answer any questions. Otherwise, like I said, it's kind of gloomy news, but I did want to share it with you. So,
any questions for Sheriff Goddard?
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Coring?
So Scott, you said 188. That wasn't 188 transports down there. I hope it wasn't 188 transports. It probably usually averaged about 50 or 60. What was the number on the transports down to the medical examiner's office?
Commissioner, great question, and I do. So this is the report from the coroner's office, not from the transport, and
as soon as I headed over, what you mentioned that, Commissioner, I think it is funny, is I thought, well, if anybody that's got a vested interest, with your history with us in the past, I thought, I do not have that number, and I thought, I wonder if Paul's gonna ask me that question. So I will get that, Commissioner, and get it back to you.
Well, the question is, when I was doing it, I did it for $400, and I believe the transport now is $800, and I understand it's a difficult job. I mean, it got to be difficult towards the end for me, but I guess, if it pretty soon we're at 100 transports at $800, that's $80,000. I guess I'd start to get worried about that being a lot of money. And maybe you have to try to figure out, maybe at that point, it'd be worth it just to have our own staff to do that, if that's the case. But I would guess that there's probably only about 50 to 60 at the most transports. When you said 188, I think a lot of those that if there's medical history, they will sign, the medical examiner will sign the death certificate, and without even seeing the body, because they'll know the history. So thanks, Scott.
Yeah, no, and that is accurate, Commissioner. That's exactly it. I will do some research and come up with that number and get it back. I can also say, when we did bid it, we've had great success with all of our transports throughout the years. And the team that we have right now is no different. When Commissioner Coring had it, he was always Johnny on the spot for getting there and helping us out. And some of them are very tough situations. And the team that we have right now, it's a thankless job, and they represent us very well and the families very well.
That's good to hear.
Yeah, Mr. Chair. Scott, do you know what that 12 suicides, how does that compare to 2019?
I don't have that. I'll come back. That's a good point. Let me come back. When I come back with the other number too of how many transport we did, let me look back in history and see what we're at. We might have seen a slight uptick because we did have a tough year. But I don't know. I mean, I know we always say 0 is almost an unattainable number, but to me, anything above 0 is, these are people that are suffering that, they always say, well, even those that they say, oh, he or she just, we never knew. But you go back in history, and usually someone along the line has said, yeah, he or she was suffering with this, or he or she was having problems with this. And this is only speaking to the deaths. This isn't speaking to the attempts. The attempts, oh gosh, I can find that number for us, but if we go a weekend without having a suicidal attempt, I'm happy when I see the calls for service, because usually on a weekly basis we have one, if not more, throughout Crow Wing County of people that have either called for help or attempted at one level or another. So,
yeah, that would be interesting. I know that it appears a lot more community outreach and support for this, which is a great thing, and hopefully the trend of that is starting to head downward. But
yes, yeah.
Any other questions?
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Sheriff.
Thank you.
County Attorney Ryan.
I'm not sure if he's on here. I don't think so.
I didn't see him.
Hey.
All right. We'll move to County Administrator, Mr. Hool.
Morning, Board.
Morning.
Good morning.
Got a couple of things for you today. First off, senior management team. Yesterday, as with all of our senior management teams throughout the past year, been talking about COVID and vaccinations and where we are at with the status of vaccinations. Crow Wing County continues to outpace the state average and is doing better than all but one of our surrounding counties in terms of vaccination percentages. So we're going to do everything in our power to keep it that way. It is never fast enough, and I get calls now, and I suspect you guys hear from folks as well. Where can I get the vaccine? Where can I get the vaccine? It's good insofar as that people really are looking for getting the vaccine, but it's a challenging time. My hope is in the not too distant future, we may see supply outstrip what we can administer, which will shift the problem to more of a local problem. So we're making plans for how we could deal with that eventuality and hoping it occurs. We also talked about kind of an updated annual look at our compensation system. What are the things that are working well for us? What are the things that are not working well? So we'll see where that analysis takes us. And that's what we talked about yesterday at Senior Management Team. Happy to answer questions about that.
Any questions? Seeing none, hearing none.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, I'll move on then to talk about the state economic assistance grants. You may recall that back in early December, the state of Minnesota passed some legislation that allocated monies to counties to do economic assistance grants in our communities. You approved an economic assistance grant program using those funds, and you divided it into priority areas to fund. Previously, with CARES Act dollars, we have funded businesses that were ordered closed. And so in this particular round, we flipped it and entertained applications from businesses that had not been ordered closed, but still had significant COVID impacts. We had not funded anything in that group before. That became our top priority. The second priority was another round for small businesses that were ordered closed. And I think it's a reflection of the fact that we know that bars, restaurants, those that were ordered closed suffered more COVID impacts. So this will be the third time that we have tried to target resources into that group. Basically, we accepted applications from the mid-December through January 12th. We got a total of 359 applications. Of those, 155 were new applications from applicants we had not seen before, totaling a little over $1.4 million in requested funds. We had 204 repeat applications, and that wasn't problematic for us. We knew that businesses were hurting, and so we expected to get repeat applications. We had 204 of those requesting a total of almost $1.9 million in funds. We had 23 nonprofit applications as well. The total requests were $3.3 million, a little bit over $3.3 million. The amount that we got from the state for this purpose was $1.1 million. And so it became quickly apparent that we were going to need to say no to a great many good applications. Because of that, we decided to break down those two buckets that we had, those who were not ordered closed and those who were ordered closed. This second bucket we divided into those we have previously funded and those we have not previously funded. You have already approved the grants for the Priority 1 area, and you've approved those grants for those that had not been previously funded. We have a couple of stragglers that are coming in this round, and we'll talk about those. But this would be then wrapping up that amount from the state program. And what we've tried to do in this final round is we're funding Priority 1 applications fully, we're funding Priority 2 applications fully. Those are two groups that we have not funded anything to before. The third pile remaining is those repeat applications. So we're funding the first two, and whatever is left over, we're dividing among the remaining qualifying applicants. At the time that you approved the Priority 1 and 2 grants, we did not have the full vetting done for the documentation. So we wanted to make sure we got that T crossed, that I dotted. We needed to make sure that whatever the Priority 3 ones that we're carrying over, we're also going to have the proper documentation. What we know from this program is we're not authorized as county government to give public funds to businesses. That's not something we can normally do. This legislation authorized us to. And so the money that we get from this legislation is all we can use. We could not, for instance, if you close this out today, we could not entertain another appeal because you can't use county resources to fund it, and these resources will, I think, be gone after the end of today. We do have one appeal that you'll need to consider. It is from the National Boxer Rescue Association. And if you will, Mr. Chair, what I'm going to try to do is walk you through this in a methodical fashion. And so I think what we probably should do is deal with the one appeal first. It is from Cheryl Strand Peterson on behalf of her home-based business. It's a 501c3 nonprofit. It's called the National Boxer Rescue, and boxer is not a reference to the punching, it's a reference to a dog breed. And so it is an animal welfare group. As part of the initial review process, there were no home-based businesses that were recommended for approval. There's some challenges there with distinguishing the home expenses from the business expenses. She did submit an original CARES grant, but it was after the deadline, and they were not ordered closed, so they would not have qualified for the CARES funding. I did explain to him that there is not sufficient funds for this, but this application was submitted on time. She does meet the eligibility criteria for the Priority 1 bucket, an organization that was not ordered closed. We can consider an appeal today, but if you close out the grant program, we will not be able to consider any further appeals. To the best of my knowledge, this is the only appeal that we've seen in all 3 rounds now of economic assistance grants that you have approved. You got materials from me back at, I think it was in early January, probably mid-January. And it was an email that came from Ms. Peterson that I forwarded to you, I wanted to make sure that whatever she wanted you to know is what you got. So you have that material as background as well. It's operated out of a home in Quint Street in southeast Brainerd over towards J.C.'s Park. I put it forward for your consideration, and we'll try to answer any questions that you may have.
So, Mr. Houle, the difference, if this was approved, in all the other grants that we would be putting forth, would only change by about $54. Is that accurate?
It would change the remaining grants from 226668 to 232103. So, yes.
$54.
So if you fund this one, there's less to be divided among the remaining priority 3 applicants. There's 188 of them. So you see how the division spreads it.
But my point is, it only drops them $54 in there.
Correct.
Other points, Commissioner Holt?
Maybe a question. Could you give me, again, we went into this with COVID-related expenses. And what would be an example of an expense in that case, in this case, that we could tie to?
I believe that what they're noticing is that their donations have fallen off. And so I think they still have their expenses. They also were getting some donated services, which they are not receiving now, probably because veterinary clinics are probably hurting a bit too. So I think it's primarily lost revenue, but also lost donations of services that make it difficult for them to make their expense budget.
Commissioner Franzine.
Is this accurate? They probably lost the same kind of things that Hart did, and we previously approved Hart?
Yes.
Any other questions? Points that would like to be heard?
Mr. Chair, were there other nonprofits that we funded because of loss of revenue?
What I would argue is almost all of this is about lost revenue.
Right.
And the loss of the revenue makes it so you can't pay the expenses. In the CARES rounds, they did not allow us to count lost revenue. In this particular case, we could. The difficulty of counting lost revenue is it's the absence of something that might have happened. And so documenting lost revenue is very difficult. So what we've tried to do is focus on the expenses, and that the expenses would be well underneath what we would expect their lost revenue to be. That's an imperfect science at best, so we've tried to do that to the best of our ability, but that's how we have focused it.
So we don't have actual receipts of COVID-related expenses?
We do ask them to submit documentation on the expenses, so yes, we do.
In this case?
We have not yet, because the application was denied. So if you approve it today, then we will seek that out, and we would only grant that which we can get documentation for.
So it potentially could be under the 10,000 if...
That is correct.
So before us, we have the appeal, and we have to make a decision on that.
Well, I would make the motion to approve the appeal for the National Boxer Rescue upon receipt of their receipts.
Motion by Commissioner Franzine to approve the appeal for the National Boxer Association. There might be more to that
Second.
title. Seconded by Commissioner Coring. Therese, if you would call the roll call, please.
Commissioner Franzine?
Aye.
Commissioner Coring?
Aye.
Commissioner Brecken?
No.
Commissioner Hoag?
Aye.
Commissioner Barrows?
Chair votes aye. Motion passes.
Mr. Chair, then, knowing that, then, we will go back, and there are some carryover priority ones and twos. Businesses that were not ordered closed but had COVID impacts, businesses that were ordered closed that we've not previously funded. So you have those in your packet, the remaining priority 1 and 2 grants and appeals. There is a list of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And some of those are not the full amount of the grant. Some of those are being recommended only for the amount of their direct COVID expenses, which would be sanitizers, face masks, things of the like. And I think the thought there was because they're highly retail sorts of locations. And it's not expected that they would have suffered the same impacts as, say, a bar or a restaurant that was closing. A convenience store would be an example of that. So some of them are funded at less than the full amount, but you have that abstract in your board packet. It is that portion that runs from Arnie's Meats and Seafoods through the Pit Stop Bar totaling $53,925. I would put that forward for your consideration. That does come with a recommendation to approve.
Questions, concerns, motion?
We're looking for a motion for the 53,000.
Yes.
Okay. I would, I think.
If I could make just a quick comment, Tyler Glenn with the Economic Development with Bladek. This list was just, we were working to confirm their Secretary of State application. So that as long as they were registered and with the Secretary of State, that's why this list was up here. That we brought that and separated these out because we hadn't yet identified that. We have verified all of these. So I just thought it'd be important to share that we have done that to this point.
Right, thank you.
Yes.
Clarifies why this list is being presented
So
separately.
those numbers are true numbers.
Correct.
And they've already been in the numbers that we're looking at dispensing here, so.
That is correct.
Just verification is all we were looking for. so.
And I only wanted to add that I had spoke to the gal from the National Boxer Rescue in quite detail. I'm not against the actual application. I just want to make sure we stay consistent with the process, that they are truly able to prove actual COVID-related expenses. So that's why I'm supporting it, but I just, again, concerned that we don't wander off and not stay consistent, so.
So I'm looking
With
for a
that,
motion to
I'll
approve.
make the motion for the,
Commissioner Hoag makes the motion to approve the remaining priority 1 and 2 grants and the appeal, although we just did the appeal, so.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Franzine. Therese, if you would call the roll call, please.
Commissioner Coring?
Yes, that's an aye.
Commissioner Brecken?
Yes.
Commissioner Hoag?
Aye.
Commissioner Franzine?
Aye.
Commissioner Barrows?
Aye, that passes.
Mr. Chair, then we have $417,069.25 left to dispense. We have those remaining applications that we have previously funded at least once. Of those applications, we have a couple that did not qualify for the full 10,000. They weren't able to document expenses associated with that. That would be the Fold at 81270, Get Fit and Go, doing business as Guiding Spirit, 97612, Made in Minnesota, 169677, Salon El Rio, 179933. With those at that level, then you would have a remaining 2266.68 for the remaining priority 3 grant applicants. What I would ask is, That is what we believe. If the National Boxer Rescue cannot document the full 10,000, this number would be different, and that you authorize us to spend the remaining after vetting the National Boxer Rescue.
So I look for a motion to approve, and with the caveat that should that number change, we will spend every penny of that to support our local businesses.
I would only expect it to move by tens of dollars at this point. So it's not significant, it's just working out the math.
That's so move.
Motion by Commissioner Brecken,
Second.
second by Commissioner Franzine. Therese, if you would call this roll call, please.
Commissioner Brecken?
Aye.
Commissioner Hoag?
Aye.
Commissioner Franzine?
Aye.
Commissioner Coring?
Aye.
Commissioner Barrows?
Chair votes aye. Thank you very much for this.
That'll conclude the Economic Assistance Grant Program. Happy to answer any questions you have about that or anything related to county government.
I would only take this opportunity to thank Mr. Glenn and his staff and our staff for all the work that was done on this one. I sincerely hope that this is a little bit of a help to the local businesses and nonprofits, but I think that we're spending every penny we can. Commissioner Coring and I agree on spending those dollars, same as the CARES Act, so get them in the hands of the people that need them. Any other questions for Administrator Houle?
You mean we agree?
Shocking as it may be, we do.
I know, I am shocked.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members.
We have one more item of business, and that's to appoint Steve Voss to the Transportation, or TAC as we call it, Committee. And if that is an appointment that the chair makes, I will make that appointment. Congratulations to Mr. Voss.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Franzine, for bringing that forward. One other quick thing, month of March is quickly coming upon us. That'll be the one-year mark for COVID. I think we have to remember the numerous unfortunate deaths that we've had. The 500,000 mark was breached, and that's a sad day. On a up note for March, it's American Red Cross Month. We should remember all of those people and what they are currently doing for the individuals in the southern part of the country right now. Secondly is the National Professional Social Workers Month in March. And I think we need to acknowledge our social workers and the professional job that they do and have done, particularly in the last year, in the conditions that they were never expecting to have to work under. So I appreciate everything that they've done, and let's remember them throughout the month of March. And the last one is National Women's History Month in March. And so every one of us men better learn to appreciate the women in this country and around the world. So, other than that, I would look for a motion to go into closed session for review of the Veteran Service Officer Eric Flowers pursuant to Minnesota Statute 13D.05 subdivision 3A.
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Franzine.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Hoag. Therese, if you would call the roll call, please.
Commissioner Hoag?
Aye.
Commissioner Franzine?
Aye.
Commissioner Coring?
Aye.
Commissioner Brecken?
Aye.
Commissioner Barrows?
Chair votes aye. We will now take an intermission to get set up for the closed session.